Welcome to Perimenopausal Athletes and Beyond, a masterclass series bringing together experts in everything and everything that, all the intersections of how do we be as athletes and how do we be as healthful athletes and in health and balancing everything when we're 35 plus, the work and the training and the life stuff and caring for our elders and all these pieces. And today we have the beautiful Severine Menem, and I am so thrilled to have you here, as you know.
Thank you. Welcome. I am too, actually.
That's you. So great. So why I'm was just so drawn to and wanted to have Severine on was, first of all, she's a registered nutritional therapist and health coach. Secondly, she's really focused on supporting women over 40. And she supports them in they're looking to lose weight and address menopause symptoms specifically and naturally. And so what we're going to get into today is some of one symptom that I know is really relevant for the audience that is listening here. And we're going to kind of target that. And then we're going to go into nutritional approaches, and we're going to look at some supplements. And then we're going to say, okay, well, when all these things don't work, then when do we get curious about whether hormone therapy is something that we look into? And let me just tell you a little bit more, just a tiny little bit more about you, Severine. I think it's just remarkable when women have a passion, which you obviously do, to support other women in perimenopause and menopause, the lengths of which we have gone. And I want to encourage people to look at your bio and the absolute in depth and the rigor that you have taken to having your voice and having an understanding of how do we best support it. So I want to just congratulate you on that, because you have taken it to another level. And what I really want to say is we get to benefit not only in this particular interaction and conversation, but Severine has written a book. And it's called Deliciously Healthy Menopause, and it's going into print next Tuesday, which is what an accomplishment. And I've had other authors come on and just say, wow, that's a process and a half and what it takes to get there. So we are so excited. We don't get it. Anybody in the United States and in Europe will not get it until mid-January. So you'll have to wait just a little longer. But thank you for devoting your time and your energy and putting it down on paper, because it just brings so much more out to us. So congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So that's my intro. Are we ready to get into it?
The big, nice intro. Really appreciate.
Good. Well, okay. So what we discussed is that, I want to look at fatigue. This is a big one, and it seems to be particularly in perimenopause and still in the beyond and many cases, is this weight that comes upon us, and this just almost it's hard to even describe. Some women talk about it as hard to describe because it's just so difficult to pinpoint. So what I would love to do is just start understanding of what is this fatigue and how does it show up, or why is it and I know this is a really big question. So I'll let you speak now and help us understand and navigate through what this means.
Yes, thank you. So there are many reasons why us women can be fatigued in perimenopause, and I'm going to list only 5 of them, but there may be a lot more. And I'm going to try to explain them what it is, and we'll delve more into nutrition a bit later, as you already introduced. Yeah. So I would say the first one, which is unfortunately quite common, and not just in perimenopause, but we have to know that in perimenopause, everything accentuates. So when it's not sorted before perimenopause, then everything gets worse. And the first reason would be anemia. when we're anemic, usually we tend to be very fatigued. And the thing with anemia is only a blood test will be able to reveal if that's the cause. And in a way, it's one of the simple causes, because you do a blood test, you know what's missing, and then you take some supplementation, and that's pretty much it. So that would be an easy answer to fatigue.
Right. And that is caused, like, in particularly in athletes, we can find anemia for a variety of reasons, either low energy availability, or I don't know if this is the right word, the hematosis. So like they've said that for female athletes, you can lose some of the blood by the pounding. That would take a lot, I would imagine.
Yeah. Usually for women, the anemia is caused by either heavy periods,
right?
So you're losing a lot of blood, or because the diet is suboptimal. So typically, you stay away from iron-rich foods. So because you don't eat them, then you can't have them and keep them, or because you've got a special condition. But that would be, I would say, a bit not extreme, but that quite unusual.
Right. And certainly with that heavy flow in perimenopause is a big one. So, okay. So that's anemia, number one. All right.
Yes. Second one with fatigue, I would say easy to point out would be the lack of exercise or overtraining and not recovering enough, which can happen when you don't know your body enough. But I think you would have more to say about that than me, because you're the fitness expert.
Yeah, it's a big one. It's particularly as we go into perimenopause, and I think people underestimate the amount of recovery we actually need. And I think it's all to do with the energy. We need to understand that our body is putting out so much more energy to adapt to the change in hormones. And we forget that is energy. And that, if I don't know, I'd be fascinated to hear from you. Is like, do we think of a pool of energy? So like we get a finite amount of energy, or do we, I mean, this is more philosophical maybe, do we have an infinite amount of energy to tap into? I think it's maybe, I mean, that's a philosophical discussion maybe, but when athletes overdo it, and it's because we haven't regarded this other piece of us that our body is working for us. I think that's the piece there about the overtraining that we can get into.
Yeah, but it has to do with our mitochondria and how well they are, basically, because that's the cells that actually produce the energy ultimately. So
right, yeah, okay. So that's another one. No, it's true. It's absolutely true. So how is it that our bodies are optimized to ensure that the mitochondria are functioning? And that comes into nutrition, and that comes into the fueling as well, right? So all those pieces to ensure that the mitochondria are doing what they need to do.
Yeah, what's our health baseline, basically. Exactly. Yes. It's just like, I think we can have as much energy as we are allowing our body to have energy. So if we're feeding our body right, if we are looking after our health, our sleep, our movements, not having too much toxins in our life, then I think we have the capacity to have unlimited amount of energy. But it takes time, dedication, and patience, Right. That's the thing. When we're fatigued, we want it, to disappear overnight, but it just didn't appear overnight. So, it takes time.
It totally takes time. And there's so much mindset involved in that. I know I'm fighting with it right now. like we all fight with mindset of how to take the breath, slow down, find other creative ways of using it. But in any case, all right. So that's number two. What's number three?
That's number two. Number three, it would be the lack of restorative sleep. Because obviously, when we don't sleep well, we have no energy the following day. And sleep is a particular issue for women, because us women tend to have a more disturbed sleep throughout our life, which accentuates when we go into menopause. First, because we might get all these menopause symptoms during the night, like being too anxious to fall asleep, and then the night sweat, and then waking up early, and so on. But also because as human beings, the sleep patterns tend to change as we're getting older, and we're not necessarily okay to go to sleep earlier and then waking up earlier. So we need to really adapt to what our body is telling us.
Yeah, that's really an interesting point too. Um, Listening to those changes and becoming aware of when that shift is. And
Mm.
yeah,
And
and that
accepting
takes,
that and going along just
yeah,
for the benefit of it. Yes.
yeah, and that takes some time to even notice it. It's just like, oh, and then
Yeah.
to remove all those factors that are keeping us from noticing it, like caffeine, like stimulants of, exercising too late, like all those things that might, impact us in that way. Okay, cool. Okay.
Absolutely. Next one would be dealing with all the potential menopause symptoms, because we know what they are. There are about 40 symptoms. We know that luckily we won't get all of them, but when we have them, we don't know when they're going to be, how frequently, which intensity, and if we can't rest, we will accumulate the fatigue, and then that's an issue. So finding out the earliest possible how to deal with our symptoms, I think it's the best way to have the least fatigue possible.
And that is where there has to be an immense amount of curiosity and also knowledge, like going to people like yourself to understand that there's things that we can do to alleviate these symptoms.
There are a lot of things that we can do on the holistic side, from starting with nutrition, and there are a lot of complementary and alternative medicines helping with that, like acupuncture, aromatherapy, CBT. I mean, lots of them, and obviously we've got HRT as well, if and when we need it. I think we should never never not consider the help that Western medicine can bring us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll get into that a little bit, at the end, and saying, okay, well, yes, how do we start to know when that, and even at what point in the age cycle do we start investigating that? Because that's, you have a really like a lot of different viewpoints and opinions on how quickly we should get to, go straight to HRT, like why not go there straight away? And I know that your focus is really on the helping the body naturally. And I think there was a speaker that said, this was in a podcast I listened to, it said, really come to understand as early as possible where you stand on it. So that you can really approach and use people like yourself and, access the resources that we have to support our bodies. Okay. So I think that was 5. Yeah.
No, that was 4.
Okay. What is the 5th one?
Yeah. So the 5th one is not being able to manage our blood sugar level properly. Which means that we are on a constant roller coaster of high and lows, and this is draining our energy, literally. And that's actually the easiest thing to sort out, if you're willing to sort it out, because it requires effort, but it's definitely worth it. And within one week to 10 days, you can have it sorted.
Well, isn't that just a hopeful place?
Yes, that's why I wanted to finish on this one. The first one is, okay, there isn't much, but the last one, you can have such a proactive approach and make such a difference. And I see that with my clients, and yeah, they don't realize, how much they've changed in just hardly changing anything. So can we get into that? Can I explain?
Oh, yes, please. I know the audience is like, okay, finally, let's go.
So the very first simple step would be to hydrate properly, because I find that, maybe not for sleep, but in most of my clients, they don't drink enough water, still water. They might drink a lot of liquid, but it's not the same to drink coffee and to drink still water. And so you start the day with a large glass of water, room temperature. Otherwise, you might have like a gastric bowel movements. I mean, depends on women, without getting into too much detail. But yeah, starting with a large glass of water before having any tea, any coffee, and then at every meal and regularly throughout the day. And obviously, when you train, have extra water. I'm not sure how to drink water before, during, after when you're training, because that's your thing. Yeah. But the idea is to make sure that we are hydrating properly. And just that, will sometimes lift the brain fog, allow you to sleep well, and get you more energy.
Yeah. Can I ask, and I don't know if you have an opinion on this or not, but it just has popped into my head of curiosity.
Yeah.
Does it matter whether you have the fluid right before a meal or with your meal? Like some things it's like, oh no, you're diluting and like in your gut. And does this timing of hydration matter?
Well, I would say it's not too good to have too much water with your meal, because you might, the stomach has a volume, and if you use most of the volume with water, then you won't have enough calories and nutrients. And then you might have your digestion going too quickly and be hungry just, 1 or 2 hours after that. And it's not ideal. So what I recommend is to have a glass of water while preparing the meal, and which will start with hydrating you. And then it will be easier to know if it's hunger that you have, or if it's just like willingness to eat. And then another glass while eating. And then if you're thirsty, well, have another one. But 2 glasses should be enough. Yeah. So hydrate. And the second thing, which is super important, I think it's not mentioned enough, because everyone knows about the fruits and veg 5 a day or more, but the amount of protein is crucial. The older we get, the more protein we need. Obviously, when you do sport, you need more protein to rebuild the muscle, but it's just, so are athletes eating naturally more protein than non-athlete women?
I think that there's an awareness among female athletes that we need protein, but I think it's one of the things female athletes struggle with quite a bit. To get in the amount that is, to bring it up. I think people are used to a lower level. And then when they're adding more, it's like, well, how? And athletes are more familiar with going to the supplemental protein powders. So that's something that they do. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So what I found is when women accept the fact that they will need to eat more protein from a food source, and they really try it, they feel that they're less hungry, their energy level are a lot more stable, and they feel generally well. So the idea is to start with having between 20 and 25, perhaps 30 grams of protein per meal. The first meal is essential. So whether it's a breakfast or lunch, it's essential, because it will pretty much says, how you will feel throughout the rest of the day. Because if you start with cereals, it takes you on a roller coaster, and then it's really hard to get out of it. And so, start with the protein, some good fats, and fill the rest with vegetable and fruits, and that should be easy.
Yeah, it should be easy. We think it's easy, but yet it's really difficult to. I think part of it, and you said it earlier, is to slow down and enough to do these things is what is required. And I think that that's the question that we, come to in a lot of these discussions is like, are we willing? What is it worth to you? And I hate to put it so blanket, what is it worth for you to change? And adding the protein in the breakfast and taking the time.
I think there are no shortcuts. I think it's important to know what is important to us. What is our value? Is it to get healthy? Is it performance? Is it, is your time? And be okay with that and find a solution around that. But in terms of having energy or having no fatigue, it's like working a lot on our lifestyle. And for that, we're the only one knowing what's working and what's not working. And for that, it will take time. And nutrition seems, the problem with nutrition is everyone is saying some different things. And especially now there is this whole direction that we should go all vegan, vegetarian because of the planet and so on. And it may be good for the planet, but it's not necessarily good for us as human beings. And supplementing might be an option, but the quality of the protein supplements, some may be really excellent, but most of them probably aren't. And food provides a lot more than just protein. So it's a difficult decision sometimes to make.
I appreciate that you bring it up, because it is challenging. I know I work with some athletes that are really struggling to get it in as either vegetarian or vegans, and then to have the availability of the protein is what you're talking about as well, the bioavailability of the proteins to make that impact. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
The amino acids, and Netflix sometimes does wonderful documentaries, but they don't show the behind the pictures, what it takes for athletes to successfully be on a vegetarian diet and keep their performance. So yeah, I was a bit upset with this movie. Anyway.
Yeah. What was the name of that movie? I think it's important just to say, I think it's important to understand, because we come to these documentaries as the truth. Yeah. And there's so much more, and to have a real critical eye to it, and to look at, just keep coming back down to the science, to the science of, well, what do we know, and how do we come into that information, and more glorified information. It's a challenge for all of us, for sure. Yeah. Okay. So that is the protein piece. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where do you take us next? So those are two nutritional approaches that are phenomenal for us. So, and those two, hydration and protein, yes, is there anything else that you really want to point to in a nutritional sense that will help us and our body combat fatigue?
So the last point I would say is to stay away from all the processed and junk foods and everything that is ready for you most of the time. So it's trying to be aware of what kind of nourishment you give your body. So trying to prepare everything from scratch, if possible, because that's
it gets into every cell
that's exactly. But that's the most nutritious food is what you prepare by yourself, because it's the least processed, or it's processed at the very last minute, so it doesn't lose vitamins or minerals. It's just exactly what's in there. So yeah, that would be best. I mean, I could do a list. It's not easy to say in just a few minutes. But I think if you do these three things, you will do a lot better energy-wise.
That's amazing. And there's, what's wonderful is there is, I'll call it a movement. I don't know, maybe we're a little bit small in the whole, scale of things, but there's a movement of eating real food while training. And so that goes along with that. And while I completely understand that there's points in which we just need the Snickers bar to get in the calories, because we've, nourished well all day, and we just actually need the sugar to keep us moving. There's still a lot of opportunity that we have to eat those real foods, so our body knows how to digest it. So I absolutely love that. So when do we start to get curious about, we've tried all those things, we're eating well, we've got the Oura ring, and we're getting onto our sleep patterns, and we've reduced our exercise because frankly, we're too tired to do it, and all those things. When do we get curious about hormone therapy?
Well, I think if you've tried all that for at least 1 to 2 months consistently, and then it doesn't work, or it doesn't work well enough, or it's too much for you to sustain in the long term, I think it's the time to accept the fact that you might need some other help, and consider hormone replacement therapy.
I love it that you gave us a timeline. It's like, when do we stop suffering? And I think that this is where, we talk about an experience of perimenopause and up into a symptom of perimenopause and beyond. And where is that going? Like experience, I would put it on as we are riding the waves. It's not going to be always, butterflies and, we're eating, beautiful kumbaya, but we're able to manage it. And then when we don't feel we can manage, it's a symptom that we can go and go into the medical model.
Because the thing is, usually when you start working with a health professional, you're pretty low already. So if you can't see a difference straight away, it means that and you choose to get better, it means that, okay, you need a boost, and the natural nutrition, natural side of things is not sufficient for where you are. So It doesn't mean that you have to give up everything you worked on for the first 1 or 2 months. It's just that you need a boost and you need something else. So you have to be ready to accept that, because there's so much nutrition can do.
Yeah. So perfect. Okay. All right. Is there anything else that I should be sharing about what you are, that we want to make sure that we didn't touch on in this interview that you wanted to get across for the female athletes?
Yeah, perhaps in terms of supplementation.
Yeah.
I'm not a pill pusher, but sometimes some supplementation can help. If you feel you are on a sugar roller coaster and you need a lot of sugar to keep you going because it gives you a boost, maybe supplementing with chromium might help reduce these highs and lows, at least to start with, so that when you reduce the amount of sugar, the body process it in a nicer way than just if it's just a sugar withdrawal. So that would be what I would recommend for a month. Then sometimes taking vitamin C and the B vitamins, so the energy vitamins, can help.
Yeah.
And the last one I would recommend was magnesium, so that you release some stress.
Yes.
It helps with sleep. It can help with a number of other conditions like headaches and so on. So it could be useful, but obviously it's really hard to recommend supplementation because everyone is different, so they will need some different supplementation.
Yeah.
But that's some of the vitamins that usually are very beneficial without any side effects. And if you see, after 1 month or 2 months, let's say, it doesn't do anything, then just forget about it. It's not going to work, the 3rd month.
Super important point you just made. Do it because it's making a difference. Yes. Supplement to make a difference. We don't just supplement to just because we think it might help. No, you supplement because you want to have a physical difference in your body. Is that correct? Yeah,
exactly. You're doing, the basics with nutrition. And then if you want to make it a bit quicker, or if you think you're actually lacking something, then try the supplementation. And if it doesn't work, then the reason why it's not working is somewhere else. Yeah. It's not because you're missing vitamin C or another vitamin. And also for supplements, I think we shouldn't have to supplement every day, all day long. Every day, all year long. Mm-hmm. I meet sometimes some women who've been taking supplements for years. And then I said, okay, fine, I'm sure now your levels are completely full because, you've taken that for so long. Yeah. So what about we stop that for a while and see if it makes any difference? And then they realize that I've been paying supplements for such a long time and it makes no difference to their health.
So be curious. And get out of a supplement to see if it makes a difference, because otherwise you're just, peeing a lot of vitamins or minerals down the toilet. And
sometimes it can be counterproductive. You can overdo supplementation.
Right. This has been really informative. I really want to thank you for sharing that. So different perspectives as well, and bringing in, and for how people take in this information. I think it's important that we understand where we're all coming from, and there is a difference between performance as an athlete. There's different levels, are we exercising in movement and working for health, or are we, aiming for that gray, that, really fine line to take it to the next level? And some of your decisions on how you approach perimenopause and how you support your body through nourishment and real food and supplementation may look a little bit different. So thank you for bringing us the angle of health. And this is what we need to do for our health. And then, be curious about the other pieces. So I have 3 rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Give us one moment of courage.
The only time I wanted to run a marathon, I felt I wasn't ready on the day and I didn't want to go. Yeah. And my husband pushed me and said, look, you start and then you finish, you stop whenever you want, and I actually finished it. which was like scary, but yeah, I've got my medal.
It is why, I mean, it is so why I do what I do, because the unbelievable feeling of accomplishment and the process of all those mindset games that we play. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm just going to start. I'm just going to start. And then I finish.
Yes. And then once you've done it, it's like, okay, I've done that. I can do anything now, because it's just so, wow.
It's so powerful, and you bring it into all your life. And that's why I'm so privileged to do that with my athletes. I just love it. It gives me goosebumps. Okay. What is one thing you're curious about right now?
Well, at the moment, I am researching more specifically biohacking for women, because we've got amazing tools like the Oura Ring and a number of other things that I would like to recommend. Once you know our health is optimal, then go to the next level. And I think there is a demand for that. And I'd like to be part of the women, the practitioner helping with that.
I'm really glad you want to be in there, because I know with your your scientific mind and your absolute depth of research, you'll give us some good tips on that. And I think that there's a lot out there that is not really valid, and we're just, it's a bit of a industry. So I'd like clarity on it. Yeah.
The biohackers are just mostly men, and it works for them and it's great. It's opened the way, but women works a bit differently. So I think we can use what they've learned and then adapt it for our cycle and everything that is happening in our life. And especially, as we're entering perimenopause, we are ready to give our health, a priority. Before there is a lot going on, and maybe health is not one of the priority. But as we're entering perimenopause, we realize, without health, we can't do anything. So a lot of women are willing to invest in what matters to live a healthier, longer life.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that statement. All right, what is one thing you're grateful for right now?
So what I'm super grateful at the moment is that I caught COVID in December and I got no side effect, because I can see some of my friends catching COVID now and really suffering from fatigue and not being able to get back into their work. And I feel sorry for them. And yeah, so I'm super grateful that I was very lucky not to have that.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry that you got it. And I'm glad, I'm very glad that you are able to keep pursuing and going, because your work is so important. So thank you so much for this conversation. I'll give you the last word. Is there anything that you want to share with our listeners finally?
Well, thank you first for having me. And what I would like to share is keep going and trying and being into fitness is amazing. I think that's one of the best things you can do for living a longer, healthier life.
Well,
with nutrition.
Yes, of course. With nutrition. Bye-bye.